Am I wrong for being hopeful? Am I wrong for looking at Trump's lame duck session and expecting some good to come out of it? Am I as a libertarian, I have no love lost for Trump politically, personally. Don't really like the guy, kind of like the guy. I'd certainly have a beer with him. I don't feel particularly strongly one way or another. I was hopeful that in this lame duck session with the power of the presidency, the power of the pardon, that Trump, thinking ahead of his legacy, would want to become Trump the benevolent, Trump the forgiving, Trump the pardoning, and that he would use this opportunity for some particularly righteous causes to talk about, perhaps, I don't know, Ross Ulbricht, the man doing 2 life sentences plus whatever for running a website, the Silk Road, for making drugs safer for millions of people. For someone like, I don't know, Ed Snowden, make someone who has revealed the evil of government as you know, as a little part of Trump's legacy. And you know what? It's not all bad. It's not all bad. Trump might be the most libertarian president we've ever had, but that's like being the least deadly form of cancer. Smartest kid on the short bus. But there's so many others who could. Who Ed Snowden, who's about to be a father, Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, someone who put their career, their life, her life on the line to expose to the world the criminality of the war in Iraq. So many victims of the drug war who deserve justice, for whom pardons would be just a start towards that justice. Yes, I am talking about reparations for stoners. That is yeah. You want to talk about righting wrongs, compensating victims of crime, but no. Perhaps my true defect as a libertarian is assuming the best in people, being too generous with the doubt, the benefit of the doubt. I have rained continuously upon President Trump to say, well, maybe there's, and I, even today, and looking at his legacy now, before the last nail is in the coffin, perhaps, no. I will still say that he is not necessarily evil. He could be the victim of manipulation. He could have a gun to his head. You can never condemn a person in their soul. But you can certainly condemn the actions when we see headlines like this from thehill.com. Trump's pardons complete the wrongs of Blackwater. Yeah. And the summary in this article, I love it. When one thinks about the nadir of the Iraq War, many recall Blackwater, the private military company that some consider to be a mercenary organization. In 2007, it committed perhaps the worst war crime of the conflict. At a traffic circle in Baghdad, 4 armed Blackwater contractors killed 17 civilians, including women and children, and injured another 20, many seriously. There has been no campaign for these war criminals. There has been no widespread public cry for their release. And there has been no dispute, really, about what they did. What should be done about it, fair enough. And even on this, I come on the side of general leniency. I would want them, in the cushiest debtors' prisons to work for the rest of their lives to make it up to their victims, not jailed in a federal pound me in the ass prison, which is a punishment, not justice. But as the article says, military experts widely condemned the killing. None of the victims was an insurgent or posed any threat to those Blackwater agents. And this is who Trump has decided to pardon. Yeah. And I don't, this is one place where I had to say there's a Democrat who did my job for me. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, tweeted, "Pardoning these murderers is a disgrace. They shot women and kids who had their hands in the air." Yeah. Mohammed Kanani, a U.S.-Iraqi dual citizen, whose 9-year-old son, Ali, was killed in the incident, told BBC News that President Trump's decision, quote, broke my life again. He broke the law. He broke everything. He broke the court. He broke the judge. Before this, I felt that no one was above the law. Even the UN Human Rights Office had to come in and say they were deeply concerned about the pardons. And there are veterans weighing in on this, going like, no, Trump, if you give a damn about the troops, even by the most totalitarian, fascist, dictatorial, statist of perspectives, anti-libertarian analysis, you have to say, look, we want the troops to be respected. We want to weed out the bad apples. Because you know how the saying goes, we talk about bad apples, never finish the statement, right? Well, you're going to spoil the whole bunch with shit like this. And I mean, if being conspiracy-minded, maybe this is Trump's attempt at destabilizing confidence in the military, and secretly he's actually working for peace in his own weird, creepy, underhanded 4D chess kind of way. No. Again, I'm going to shower him with the benefit of the doubt here. Give him I gotta do that analysis. That's my crime as a libertarian, thinking too well of people's intentions. Because I see this and I go, oh, and it's not too late. There could be a whole other wave of pardons coming from Trump, but I'm not holding my breath. Now, we're not going to get too far into the virus, which shall not be named itself here, because heaven forbid we be censored in free speech America under President Trump for, I don't know, questioning the authorities on Corona, or yeah, yeah, I deserve that one. So, but this is Trump's legacy, and what is it all about? And we're going to get more in depth in this even later in today's show. But it's the economy, stupid, as James Carville would have said. What we are experiencing right now, this season of coronavirus that never seems to end, it's a racket. It's a ripoff. Whatever even if you think the virus is exactly as real as the mainstream media says, and if that's the case, I got a government bridge to sell you. But if you believe that, I'll give it. Even given that, look at the bigger story. Look at how the shutdowns are happening. Look at the hypocrisy. Look at who's benefiting. P. Bono, right? Look at the wealth of billionaires skyrocketing over this past year. I don't even want to cover that story. Those stories are getting old. But let's examine Trump's role in it through the lens of the latest policy, at least for a second here. Business Insider has this headline: new Trump rule could cost waiters more than $700 million in lost wages by allowing employers to take more of their tips to pay other workers. A new rule published by the Department of Labor on Tuesday would allow restaurant owners to take employees' tips to pay back of the house workers, such as cooks and dishwashers. An analysis by the Economic Policy Institute found that change could cost workers more than $700 million. The regulation will also allow employers to require tipped employees to perform more non-tipped labor like cleaning. And as Heidi Shire Holtz, an economist at EPI, told Business Insider, it's really, really clear this is about the interests of corporate executives and shareholders. No shit, Sherlock. Really? Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is at a time when restaurant workers are mostly known as former restaurant workers. It's sad. It's this. You want to talk about one of the hard hit industries in the United States right now? Do not to the virus. Partially, and to the virus fear mongers out there, I'll give you that. Hey, if your customers have become irrationally afraid of going to your business is going to have a hard time with or without government intervention. Oh, but wait, most of that fear mongering came from government, didn't it? So I go back to this because Trump said it early on in this. He said, it's okay. A lot of restaurants are going to shut down. They're just going to come back with new owners. Pretty clearly well within Mussolini's definition of fascism, of the merging of corporations and the state. Now, as for this tipping thing, do employers have a right to take a tip from a server? I mean, as someone who believes in freedom, as someone who likes to tip, I'm inclined to say no. That's between me and the server. That's the tradition of serving, that you create that space in your restaurant where I, as a customer, can give a server. And this, when I was a server, when I was a bartender, this was respected at the restaurant I worked at, that was a direct financial expression of appreciation for services. And if you don't want to create that space as a restaurant, you have that right. You can create that deal with your servers. You have that freedom to set those terms, and I might be slightly less inclined to dine at your restaurant. But this is another level of bullshit government intervention in the economy that has no justification whatsoever and is inevitably going to hurt workers. And this is Heidi Shierholz, an economist at EPI. This is about the interests of corporate executives and shareholders, as has pretty much everything Trump has done. And I've said this from the beginning. The supporters of his are right when they say that he can't be bought because he's been in the pockets of the banks since the beginning. You look at his loans, you look at his leveraging, you look at everything in his financial history. And I'll go back. I think I'll say it at this point because he's been pardoned now. Roger Stone, and Roger Stone deserved to be pardoned. Roger Stone is a friend of mine, but even independent of that, you want to talk about worthwhile pardons for victimless crimes. If Stone is completely guilty of manipulating politics the way that they said he did, he still shouldn't do time. And really, unless you want to lock up pretty much every member of Congress. But he told me before Trump was elected, when we were doing the taping, and when Stone and I met for the first time at a TV show pilot taping that never went to air, that Trump's not worth $10 billion. He's not even worth $4 billion. He might be worth a few $100 million. And yeah, when you're worth a few $100 million, if you want to inflate that and make it look like 10 billion, so you'll be able to create that illusion for some of the people some of the time. And the illusion of Trump being a man of the people or for the worker, that is an illusion that is going away with not just this policy, but even over his entire legacy. We're going to see now, regardless of Corona, the effect of Trump's policies. If he's going to blame the first year of his presidency on the outgoing administration, well, then, let's put responsibility where it's due on Trump. And it's not these arbitrary, well, the president is responsible for the economy. No, nonsense. But they should be held accountable for all the ways in which they impede economic freedom. Now, the biggest turnaround here, this latest thing, and I saw the video when Trump criticized the COVID relief bill and said, hey, this is $900 billion of pork and nonsense. And I stood up and cheered for Trump. Like, I literally stood up and was like, yes, this is one of the things that I appreciate about Trump. And perhaps a part of his legacy will be, in his own way, telling it like it is. But what good is it if you tell it like it is and go, hey, everybody, what we're doing in politics is criminal bullshit, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway. And then you just turn around and go with it. And Trump, like, you know, apologists are going to say, well, he did what he could. He called it out. Well, you know what? Fine. There's a potentially much worse negative effect out of this that now Americans will just come to accept them. Oh, we know it's bullshit and we accept it. Trump told us, you know, and maybe that's progress. Maybe it's not. I think it is. I'll give some credit to Trump for that where it's due. But bottom line, the next headline from AP, Trump signs massive measure funding government COVID relief. President Donald Trump signed a $900 billion pandemic relief package Sunday, ending days of drama over his refusal to accept the bipartisan deal that will deliver long-sought cash to businesses and individuals and avert a federal government shutdown. The massive bill includes $1.4 trillion to fund government agencies through September and contains other end-of-session priorities, such as an increase in food stamp benefits. You know, one of the things that Trump was rightly calling out was that this wasn't an up and down bill. There were all these things just thrown into it by amendment, and it's one of it. It is a law. It's not the first bill since he's been president that this has happened to, that he has signed off on anyway. I don't know why am I as a libertarian so goddamn naive as to think that Trump might somehow be plotting to do the right thing. So he tries to make the checks for individual Americans $200 or $2,000 instead of $600, and there's the whole drama about lapse in unemployment benefits. It'll come back. I don't think anybody's going to fall through the cracks because of Trump's political maneuvering here. But what bothers me and what I think is really appropriate to his legacy is the bullshit, the fakery, the head fake, and just now that we all right, we'll sign it. So the Post the New York Post has this opinion editorial from the whole board. The Post says, "Give it up, Mr. President, for your sake and the nation's. Mr. President, it's time to end this dark charade. We're 1 week away from an enormously important moment for the next 4 years of our country. On January 5, 2 runoff races in Georgia will determine which party will control the Senate, whether Joe Biden will have a rubber stamp or a much-needed check on his agenda. Unfortunately, you're obsessed with the next day, January 6th, when Congress will, in a pro forma action, certify the Electoral College vote. You have tweeted that as long as Republicans have courage, they can overturn the results and give you 4 more years in office. In other words, you're cheering for an undemocratic coup." Now, that's not really fair to Trump's case, because he would say, well, we actually won. We were cheated out of more, even though we can't prove it. But that actually gets to my final point here about Trump's legacy. And I don't like it. It's not the holding on. It's not the fighting the results. I actually do like, I sort of respect, maybe in a weird way, the on message tenacity of Trump in all of this. You got to point out the legacy now, unavoidable, of the fact that he is toxic in Georgia, that with the control of the U.S. Senate hanging in the balance, he is not hitting the stump for his team in Georgia, rallying the troops, even turning out voters. No. But this claim, oh, there's widespread voter fraud. And the thing is, there is. I guess I'm in kind of an unusual position on this, because I've studied voter fraud before. It is a widespread phenomenon. Now, the crux of their argument is that it's enough to overturn the election results. No, it's not. But you are pointing out that it is such a mess of a system that when both parties say they're cheating, they stole votes, well, they're both telling the truth for once. But when they say they're the only ones, they're full of shit. How many votes were stolen from the Libertarian in all of this? From Dr. Jo Jorgensen? Not even a part of the mainstream conversation, of course. No one is there to defend her votes, our votes, for the Libertarian Party, for freedom, for at least an expression of preference towards freedom. But this claim now that there's widespread voter fraud when there isn't. I wonder with Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani farting and with his hair dye running in sweat beads down his face. If it's, I'm not making that up. Look it up. Look at the photos, the video. It's hard to believe that this man, Rudy Giuliani, was once polished enough to be at least counter Ron Paul, a contender for the Republican presidential nomination, let alone mayor of New York City. I wonder if it's all some show. But this idea of securing his legacy, no, there's really no chance. Because his legacy has been a dumbing down of America, of politics in particular, of lowering our standard of intellectual integrity, of the acceptance of wishful thinking, bandwagon fallacies, all sorts of other logical gaps and errors driven by pride and emotion, as opposed to facts, reason, logic, even love, compassion. No. It has been a sad 4 years for America with President Trump. I am not happy to see Biden replace him by any means, but I am certainly not sad to see him and his sorry legacy go. And today is Monday, December 28th, 2020. We are almost there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on Adam versus the Man. One more week of the show in 2020 and a week off for a honeymoon in Hawaii. I'm here with my lovely, patient, perfect wife. As we are traveling together, she is in the room in our portable studio right now. And then we'll be back for a week from Hawaii. And I don't know, maybe we can get Jim or CJ or our wonderful co-host today filling in for Jim Mercedes to cover for me one of those days. But I am looking forward to this week as we get ready for getting to Hawaii. By the way, one of the reasons we are hanging out in Southern California is COVID. I wanted to hear it this time. Thank you, CJ. That was intentional. Because in order to go to Hawaii without doing their mandatory 14-day quarantine for incoming travelers, you can now get out of it, and who knows to what extent enjoy Hawaii. Yes, I'm looking forward to bringing you updates. I will at least be on Twitter and Instagram, letting you all know how that goes. But we have to have a negative COVID test result taken within 72 hours of leaving the mainland for Hawaii. So that's what we're planning on doing. And it looks like we got lucky at the last minute here. We were able to get appointments with Walgreens, which should be the cheapest option and should have us with our results in time for a flight Saturday. So we were yesterday refreshing the website. Are the new appointments available? Yes. All right. And this is like, socialized medicine. This is like, I mean, the old dumb joke from Soviet Russia. Remember, there were two women standing in a bread line, and one of them turns to another and says, "Can you believe it? In America, the government doesn't even bake bread for their citizens." Yeah. Well, in some countries, they don't take over the healthcare industry. They don't. This is insane. So we have a fun format now that we're going to be trying out this week, where Monday is Catch Up Monday. So today we did block on Trump's legacy. A lot of news about Trump over the holiday that we missed. By the way, hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great Chris Muhammad, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever Yule tradition. Enjoyed your winter family time, long holiday weekend, however you do that in our modern, ever so increasingly secular society. So we had a good time here with a relatively chill Christmas in Southern California, and looking at palm trees and beautiful weather. But we have to be here to get this COVID test to make sure that we can get it in time for this trip. And it is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I was getting onto the blocks of the show. So today we caught up on Donald Trump. We've got a block coming up next on economics, and it's a lot related to the virus, but it's sort of separate from our big virus block, which is going to be Tuesdays, and hopefully we will be able to successfully contain the virus with our producers. Very innovative technology here on Innovating in Adam versus the Man with intrepid producer from South Dakota, CJ Abernathy, behind the wheel of this show. We are going to be able to fully contain that virus, which shall not be named, because it hasn't been mentioned on today's show at all yet. So we will completely contain it to a block on Tuesdays, and then no one will get it. But yeah, we got a lot of vaccine stuff. In fact, tomorrow, thanks to Retribution and our Producers Club, we have a big block on vaccines and explaining this. And I'm really looking forward to this. We might have two separate blocks, one for news and one just for vaccine. But that's Tuesday, and then Wednesday, hopefully we have guests coming up later this week, not today. And then Fridays are going to be our cutting edge of good news days, like we did for the last show before the holidays. That was so much fun. The cutting edge of good news of tech and progress and understanding nature and science and all of that wonderful stuff. So I'm going to be piling up stories. Keep them coming. Producers Club's got a lot of those, and I'm watching the notes right now. CJ says we have a new comment champion this morning already. So let's get Mercedes up in here, filling in for comment Jim Freedom, who is unfortunately occupied by events in Phoenix beyond his control. Mercedes, how are you doing this morning? Did you have a good holiday weekend?
I did. Oh, hey, I moved the cat tree down here. So as long as I'm in my husband's office, you get kitty views. So there's Sophocles. So yeah, I had a great holiday. We only did 2 Christmases out of the multiple that we normally do, because Grandpa just got out of the hospital because he had a heart stent put in, so they're out. My grandparents are still on lockdown because Grandma's super breakable, so they're out. My mom wants to do New Year's Eve Christmas because she's hip, cool, and happening, and Christmas is dumb at our house. Like, not big.
I'm pretty sure that's illegal. If you do Christmas at New Year's, you have to call it Festivus, right?
Probably, but she's definitely pagan, Wiccan, like we're occulty. So it's whatever. C'est la vie. It's out on the farm.
The Christmas thing, doing our Christmas thing, right? Whenever we feel like it.
We're gonna celebrate the end of 2020 together as a family in defiance of social gathering.
Well, for those of you who don't know, I am on and off. I'm a bad Festivusian, but I am a Festivusian nonetheless. If you don't know Festivus, it's the Festivus. For the rest of us, you can do it whenever you want. Look it up. Sometimes people ask me, Adam, when is Festivus? Because I'm often regarded as an expert on these things, having been a big Seinfeld fan from back in the day.
I miss
but people ask me, when is Festivus? When do you put up the pole and do your feats of strength? And it's whenever I feel like it, because that's when Festivus is, and that's the best part of Festivus.
And it's funny you say that too, because I bought myself a pole for my birthday this year, and my mom got a pole from Santa this year, and it is in her kitchen right now. So it's my fault. I've started a sex workers revolution in my family finally, and the best part is my mom is actually a bar confirmed lawyer, attorney.
Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yes, no, but that's exactly, but that's how we live. Like, my mom's an anarchist. She raised me to be an anarchist. She said, can't rebel against me because if you rebel against me, you're conforming, and she wasn't wrong. So yeah, Christmas was great.
I'm gonna remember that for my kids. That's
yes, clever. And I'm using it on Cora. It's not working because she's a toddler. So yeah, our comment champion today is Mr. Matt. Welcome back, Freedom Fam, which I agree with. I missed everybody a lot while we were not. It was nice to not be on, but it was also very weird, I'm going to say.
Well, one of the things that was cool about this break in the show was that the Producers Club conversation like and I really just continued with some momentum. Excuse me, and I really want to develop this, and I got to put this out as a call for action, a call for help for 2 projects. But what you got me thinking about, aside from let's work a promo in here, right? AdamVersusTheMan.com,
Yep.
Patreon, find the link. $10 a month, you can join the Producers Club, and it's all about this Telegram chat. And I'm not.
Really is.
This isn't a paid promotion for Telegram. It just happens to be free and convenient as a messaging service for links and files and managing groups, and it's awesome. And if you go to patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan, you can join us for $10. So, but here's and CJ wants to go right into, but the store, and if you join, you do get 15% off and free shipping at the Adam versus the Man store. A lot of cool merch there. We try to get the little annoying sidebar. I'm gonna blame COVID, and if CJ wants to cut me off this time, he probably should know that our merchandise company is overloaded at this point.
Yeah.
And CJ did such an awesome job loading up designs. We never thought, and I'm not hitting them on this. It's just stupid stuff that a lot of these economic kinks
trickle down
that we're experiencing right now are just shit sucks.
It's like we're living
everything's
slowed down in the 90s. It feels like the 90s. I'm just gonna say it. We're back in the 90s.
Is it because I'm in plaid? And are you wearing Freddy Krueger colors? Is that what?
Yeah, and it's Abercrombie, and it's so I'm like, we are back in the 90s.
I hope you got that at a thrift store.
I don't know where it came from. I think I got it for Christmas one year, and I just hate sweaters, but it's cold.
CJ says it's like constipation. This too shall pass. I hope he's not talking about your sweatshirt or your sweater there, but yeah. Okay, so back to the bigger point, Mercedes here. The conversation in the Producers Club. I mean, I think it's one of the greatest honors to be in the business of news, to have an audience that respects you enough to say, let's take your view of the world, let's take your lens on the world, let's listen to what you think is important. And I sometimes fantasize about, if we were getting paid instead of ripped off by YouTube, right? If we were getting paid even more we deserve with our views, that I would be able to hire, a huge editorial writing staff. But you know what? I don't have to, because we have this. It's like I'm Tom Sawyer. I've tricked everybody into, whitewashing the fence for me. But no, this is it. We have this amazing conversation that's had this beautiful momentum that's carried over the break, even without the shows. And so my prep for today was like, I glanced at Drudge Report. And it was like, in case there's anything that the team missed in the last 12 hours. But it was basically just pulling up links and kind of organizing them. As I like to. And so my to get to the call to action part here, I'm going to ramble some more on sidebars, right? Okay, Drudge Report. At Drudge Report, I've been a fan and a user for years, and a regular. I think what it provides is biased, but as a mechanism of a comprehensive, easy to take in so much, very efficient. At once in headlines, it is amazing, and to see its bias shift over the last few years from being pro-Trump to anti-Trump, at least, and it's pretty obvious. And is it exactly that, or is that the best way to describe it, or did Matt Drudge go somewhat liberal? I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I don't care to know that deep into it. But for a long time, I have wanted a libertarian answer to that. And in some ways, I think of this podcast as, the libertarian podcast version of the Drudge Report, that we try to provide this, overview of current events and the story of humanity. Are the cats okay? So anyway, since we've got this amazing editorial team and this great stream of news stories, I would love to have someone step up as a volunteer to help turn the freedomline.com into a version of the Drudge Report, a libertarian answer to that, or at least with it'd still be my site with links to Adam versus the Man direct, but the main purpose of that could be at the bottom, that could be out of the way, but that we take the Freedom Line and make the main site this, the libertarian answer to the Drudge Report as a news aggregator. And I would be open to, profit sharing. Drudge Report makes a ton of money, but they are a freak of success. And I think we can borrow from that element, and especially now that Drudge has personally pissed off so much of his audience, we can. I think we can provide another unique niche service and help a lot of people get the written headline summary version of the Adam versus the Man podcast. So the other thing is Homefront Battle Buddies. We're getting going with the new Veteran Service Organization, and I've been working with Stephen McClure, who you probably know from some interviews on the show, Afghanistan Navy Bronze Star combat vet, civil disobedience pastor in Georgia, and we've decided that to keep the mission of it simple, we are going to be creating a community and hosting retreats among our generation of veterans in order to create a means of discussing alternative therapies. So we're going to keep that sort of legal and organizational separation. Like, yes, if one veteran brings cannabis to one of our retreats and shares it with another, they are unofficially outside of our event exploring alternative therapies. We support discussing alternative therapies, and so that gives us a lot of leeway, and we really want to grow this, and so we need help right now. We've got the website part, we've got a package with Namecheap.com. It's all ready to go. We just need a webmaster to step in and work with Steve and help out with that. Now, one other thing, we always encourage our audience to get involved. I guess this is a critical difference with Drudge. that Mercedes wants to talk about MakeThemDebate.com.
Yes. So MakeThemDebate.com is why I got kind of pulled into this, because I'm the debate manager, because, I mean, whatever, debates are fun. I personally, as a nerd, was really, really excited to see this website because I've never actually seen a platform that was solely for debates, promoting debates. And this platform is the first. To my knowledge, I believe Adam and his debate he had on the platform was the first debate that the platform had. And it went really, really well. But the website needs a little help. So we're going to talk about it right now. If you would pull it up for me, CJ, and then I can talk about it while it's doing this stuff. But what I wanted to see with Make Them Debate is have everybody go and just make Adam debate. It just, it's a crowdfunding thing.
You like to see opposing politicians debate an important topic? Would you like to see two celebrities hash out a famous rivalry? Or would you like to see a community group converse with a local lawmaker, but you just can't seem to persuade them to talk to each other? MakeThemDebate.com allows you to create a debate between any two public figures, sponsor the debate with crowdfunding, share on social media, and attempt to get your chosen parties to accept as the sum of the sponsorship grows. MakeThemDebate.com. Create your dream debate today.
Yeah, so we've been trying to get that to work, and we really want it to work. So if anybody wants to go see Adam debate, there are a few debates up now, and to make it work, though, we need more social interaction on the Twitters, I think. But as far as MakeThemDebate.com, I really, really like it, and it's nerdy, and I'm sorry. But yeah, hi, Adam. What's up?
Awesome. Oh, so, I didn't realize I was back
up
on my screen.
Yeah, it's okay because it's fine.
Still tech difficulties.
It's always okay. So we have quite a few comments, actually. Just a lot of good mornings.
I should point out, Mercedes, I had a Twitter exchange this weekend, and oh my gosh, I can't even forget the guy. He's got I can't remember the guy's name. He's got 30,000 followers. Remind me after the show, we'll find it. Because he wanted to get it set up on Make Them Debate and was supposed to send me an email. I don't know if I missed it. But yes, before we get to our financial block coming up next, or economics block, let's check in with the audience some more. What do you got for comments?
I have top of the morning from Craig. He also loves the background. Philip Anderson also loves it. Matt Baxley, back to the tipping segment, said, I never tip. I leave cash gifts. It's tax-free. You are not only the winner champion comment of the day, but also now my favorite customer. If I would
hold on a second. I Matt here. I never tip. I leave cash gifts. It's tax free. Now, I think I super appreciate the point. I think the language is unnecessarily snarky. Put it back up one more time. Put it because it's I don't tip. I leave cat like look, you can be a libertarian without being a dick about it, okay? Like like
Whatever. At least he's tips.
No, because I'm 100% with Matt on the point, and I understand what he's doing here is making a smart aleck comment to just say to point out this important distinction, right? But it when I say I tip, I hope people know that like if I can, I don't put it on the receipt. I give cash, right? And I sometimes I'll even make the point of the server to the server, this is not a tip, so you don't have to report it for taxes. Thing is, most of them, if they don't have to report stuff for taxes, they're not going to do it. They're already engineering their shit. There's like, yeah, thanks for the cash.
There's a system in place in which we don't talk about Fight Club.
But I do like talk. I think as a libertarian, you can say like, technically, you're safer avoiding the tax liability by not using the term tip, and it's stupid, but that may be true.
It's fine when daddy government's involved, right? And speaking of daddy government, Kareem says, hey, what's up? And then thank you for supporting gender studies in Pakistan. I emailed Marcus about getting a libertarian candidate on your show. So, I mean, as a female who's never taken gender studies, I don't understand. But it's fine. It's called privilege, I guess. And then there's just a couple comments saying hi to me. Hello. And then Trump has... That's a really long comment. I don't have time to read right now. And then Anthony Ralston says, liberty or death, keep up the good fight.
All right.
It's a good comment, I think, to go on to the next place, right?
All right. Well, our final promo, of course, is cigarfederation.com, where promo code ADAM10 gets you 10% off. And you can support my habit. And I greatly appreciate supporting this other veterans-owned business that I got, where my friend who saved my life, Staff Sergeant Kelly in Iraq, has always hooked me up with cigars. So let's take this opportunity to support his business. Cigarfederation.com, promo code Adam10, all caps, for 10% off. All right, let's get into our economics block, and then we'll check back in. And by the way, there's one other thing I'm absolutely remiss in pointing out here, because Mercedes is on the job today. Top comment or caller, if you can convince Mercedes that you deserve to call in today, we'll take calls.
I mean,
of course, if you're Producers Club, you're always welcome to call in.
All you have to do is click the link in the producers chat that CJ shared earlier, if you scroll back up, and then you can call in and be on and talk and stuff, and it's using your privilege of being in the Producers Club to be on Adam versus the Band.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so we are giving away a membership to top comment or caller, and so for the Producers Club today. It's Matt,
and it's already in. So.
All right, so let's cover some economic stories, and then we will come back and check in with the audience, and then do our grab bag and I like the aliens intro better. We're going to be doing that every Friday. The cutting edge of good news of extraterrestrial life. All right, Yahoo Finance as this headline: Bill Gates led effort to get $3.36 billion into the coronavirus deal to help vaccinate world's poor. Ben Worshkull, DC producer. During an appearance at the Yahoo Finance All Market Summit in October, Bill Gates had a prediction. He said the coronavirus stimulus negotiations would be the best opportunity to get funding approved to help the poorest people in the world get vaccinated. The people in the Congress who support these things have decided that the stimulus bill is the most likely way for something to get done. That insight from the Microsoft co-founder has apparently come true. As part of the announcement Sunday evening of a $900 billion coronavirus relief deal, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer touted an additional $3.36 billion for a total of $4 billion for GAVI, the International Vaccine Alliance. And a lot of people want me to research more about Bill Gates. And ironically, I met him and shook his hand a long time ago at a party through some weird family connection. But I don't really care to know. Anybody who is worth what Bill Gates is doing and has the financial security resources is going to be capable of misdirection and is going to spawn crazy conspiracy theories. And there are plenty out there about Bill Gates, but you don't need that to condemn him and to expose what he's doing with this. Now, when I hear, oh, Bill Gates, how much is he worth? Versus 3.36 billion in this. Yeah, I'm tempted to go, well, how much of your own money did you really give to this cause? And how much can you really care if what you're doing is getting the American government, to steal from the American people? Remember, this is another form of foreign aid, which Ron Paul describes as taking money from poor people in rich countries to give to rich people in poor countries. And now the thing about the vaccines, is there a global motivation? Absolutely. I am all for seeing us as a global human family. I am all for recognizing that the global human petri dish that we all live in is one that we all have a hand in, that we all have a role in, that we can all manage better or worse to the detriment of ourselves and everybody else. So, and I'm not pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. I mean, I'm generally pro-vaccine in the sense that I'm pro-smart vaccine. I'm pro vaccines where if you kill somebody with your vaccine because you screwed up the formula, you're held accountable for that. I'm against forced vaccines, absolutely, and I'm against stealing from people to fund somebody's central planning fantasy, whether it's benign or not, because inevitably it's going to have unintended consequences. And you can condemn Bill Gates sufficiently by understanding that that's the game he is playing, that he's not giving his own money. I mean, I don't want to say he's not, because he is giving huge parts of his own money. When you're that rich, who cares? It's management. When you find yourself at the top of the human wealth pyramid, of course, now joined Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Bezos and all these others who have gained so much wealth in the last year under this this pandemic, which is really a pandemic of fear, of government intervention. And if this is the direction society is going, Gates is leading the charge in a lot of dangerous ways. And a big part of this is, you look at the bill as a whole, $900 billion. And Bill Gates comes in and says, hey, this global vaccine fund is important. Let's get some money in for that. And he is endorsing this and touting this as a good thing when he knows that he is part of a fundamentally evil system that has enriched him, that is responsible for his wealth. If it wasn't for the US dollar, banking, corporate, political system, he would not be as wealthy as he is. So he's not going to look at this $900 billion bill and say, well, thank you for the crumbs, U.S. government. Stop screwing over poor people on behalf of rich people to serve your fundamental purpose, which is to keep the super rich getting richer at the expense of everybody else. You go, oh, that's really the core of Bill Gates's game. Now, does he have some other motivation in eugenics, population control? Yeah, probably. There's got to be something. He's got to know that there are implications to these policies that he's advocating. To what extent that is related to his core motivation, I don't know. I don't care. I don't need to psychoanalyze Mr. Gates to say that he is absolutely wrong for what he is doing, not just in forcing his central planned vision on the world, but profiting perversely, personally, from an evil system. However, we do have some good news to counter this. I know you're thinking economics, it's going to be all bad news under the lame duck Trump session, but no. Despite the consolidation of wealth and power that we have witnessed over the last year, despite the manipulation of the crypto markets for good and for bad, up and down, finally, it seems like we have reached a point of stability with the economic contractions, at least the accelerated decline that we were in over most of this year, there's been kind of this isn't something to like celebrate, but it seems that there's been a significant bottoming out dynamic at this point. And one of the things that is leading to is people looking at now with some space, with some breathing room, at least treading water financially somewhat more comfortably than in a prior state of shock. Now we have Bitcoin investment at an all-time high. We have Bitcoin's price surpassing $28,000. This headline is from Bitcoin.com, specifically news.bitcoin.com. Bitcoin all-time price high surpasses $28,000. BTC's $500 billion market cap, now bigger than Visa. Now, a lot of these things, these comparisons, you go like, well, are we comparing apples to oranges? If it's, they just numbers have, they have to be contextualized. But the context here is not, hey, we're bigger than Visa now. It's that Bitcoin has reached another marker, another milestone. And it's on a spike right now. I know this is, as a booster of freedom in Bitcoin, it's not good to look at this chart from the story and go, yeah, here's Bitcoin over time. It's definitely in and there are Bitcoin evangelists that say, no, this might never come down. This might not be a spike. This might be to the moon. But no, being realistic, what we're seeing right now, this surge of Bitcoin over $28,000 is not a sustainable spike. So I do have to predict here that Bitcoin is going to come down significantly as a correction from this exciting tear that it's on right now, crossing $28,000. But it's not going to come down like under 20,000. It might not even come down under 24. I mean, that would be huge if the spike results in that much positive gain for Bitcoin as a baseline. But Bitcoin trading and bouncing up in these numbers creates a number of psychological phenomena, crossing psychological barriers in terms of being stable at over $20,000. This is really exciting. Now, I don't want to pretend, that Bitcoin is the be all end all of crypto, is going to displace the dollar, and this is it. This takes us to a voluntary society. It has that potential. That's enough reason to root for it, to be a part of it, to do what you can in your own financial life to avoid using a dollar, at least as an ethical principle, the US dollar or any other fiat currency that is used as a means of ripping you off through the inflation tax, and by creating digitally more money for government to use to hurt you, to hurt other people. Even, well, maybe not you. If you're one of the privileged citizens of the empire, you might be spared that. But I think that that doesn't affect your moral obligation to say, if I have a choice between using a currency that is used to manipulate and steal in order to hurt and disadvantage people versus one and loses value versus one that's based on freedom and is completely voluntary and is engineered to gain in value as more people adopt it. Yeah, I think so. So hopefully this leads to a new renaissance for Bitcoin. So to get into some of these numbers, the leading cryptocurrency by market valuation, BTC, Bitcoin, has climbed immensely in value during the last few days. At the time of publication, the asset is trading between $27,250 to $27,750 per Bitcoin on Sunday morning. So this isn't even, this is a story from yesterday. Right now, Bitcoin has taken a slight correction, as I've suggested. I think 28,000 is going to be the spike of this peak right now, according to Bitcoin.com's ticker on this page. The current Bitcoin price is $27,145.99. Of course, Bitcoin is a booster of Bitcoin Cash as an alternative BCH. Still up and coming. Who knows whether or not it's going to get the same momentum eventually. Trading right now at $367.1 there. So the the increase, and again, looking at this curve, as the article says, data from markets.bitcoin.com show that the BTC dominance index has surpassed the 70% handle with an overall market cap of $510 billion today. Yeah. There's approximately 18,582,450 BTC in circulation today. And during the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has seen $21 billion in global trade volume. So that's maybe a more immediately tangible measure of the significance of Bitcoin. And that does scale it down. I don't mean to diminish this, but to the naysayers who would say, well, you've created this virtual currency and it's all just out there and it's valued like speculative assets, it doesn't really, mean anything or do anything. And it's all just, yes, you can say it's backed by the encryption, but it's all just ones and zeros and it could go to zero at any time. Well, hey, guess what? It just, like, in 24 hours served as a mechanism for $21 billion worth of global trade volume. Can't deny that. The stablecoin Tether USDT is still the dominating pair against BTC on Sunday, capturing 56% of all trades, followed by trading pairs like USD, US dollar, JPY, the Euro, KRW. During the last 7 days, BTC is up 16.4% and 59.12% over the course of the last month. So this really is a last month tear, but I hope and I do believe that what this represents, even though you are going to see Bitcoin naysayers come out and say, oh, look, it came down to whatever it comes down, and there are plenty of people who have an interest in manipulating the market for Bitcoin. So none of the predictions that anybody can make about Bitcoin are ever sort of ironclad or set in stone, something that someone perceived, because we're all looking at momentum that at any time could be swayed massively by a handful of individual actors, both for and against Bitcoin. So the spike that we're on, this tear that we're on right now, is going to come down some. I think that's a pretty safe prediction. Although, I admit even that could be totally wrong. That what I do see is the bigger positive news here, and things like, we have bigger market capitalization than Visa now with Bitcoin, is that there's going to be a certain amount of respect and appreciation for the stability that I hope now, sort of post the first year of the crisis of the virus, which shall not be named, we are going to get to a crypto renaissance. And I look forward to being a part of it with all y'all. All right, a couple more. Well, geez, I don't say a couple more because these are big economic stories. DNYUZ.com has this headline: market edges towards euphoria despite pandemic's toll. The stock market will not quit, already notable for its mostly unstoppable rise this year, despite a pandemic that has killed more than 300,000 people, put millions out of work, and shuttered businesses around the country. The market is now tipping into outright euphoria. Big investors who have been bullish for much of 2020 are finding new causes for confidence in the Federal Reserve's continued moves to keep markets stable and interest rates low. And individual investors who have piled into the market this year are trading stocks at a pace not seen in over a decade, driving a significant part of the market's upward trajectory. Now, this is maddening, the perspective on this, the kind of propaganda that this represents. And by the way, this is from the New York Times. I should have cited that at the beginning. They go, oh, the New York Times, and there's this denial of statism, and I don't mean to be conspiratorial in suggesting that, the people in the New York Times are directly communicating with people in government and creating a narrative that manipulate the people that serves both. And you go, wait. Well, when you put it like that, they really are. And why do they do it? Why? Money and power, right? And in this case, the appeal to greed. And I'm not, greed is good. Self-interest is good when it's measured not in dollars, but in love and happiness and value created for yourself and your family and your community and the great global human family. But the stock market and the manipulation that we're seeing there now is not a product of that kind of greed. It's more the greed of theft, of ripping people off. And this phrasing already in this story from the New York Times, I can't get over, despite a pandemic that has killed more. No. First of all, that number we know is mostly nonsense. A number which we will continue to deconstruct on a regular basis here on Adam versus the Man. But even to say that again, so many of these narratives, even if you grant them their counterfactual, anti-scientific premises, they still don't hold any water. It's circular logic. There's no holes in it. Or is it full of holes? I don't remember how it goes. But this logic, this narrative is completely full of holes. It's not despite the pandemic. It's because of the government's response to the pandemic, because of the government's excuse of the pandemic, its use of that excuse to do its job, to consolidate wealth and power further into the hands of the few. So it's not despite this pandemic. It's because of it. It's because, and this is something that we, oh man, in a way, these stories get old to talk about, how much richer the rich are getting. And the stock market is one measure of that they try to pretend is not representative of that, despite the fact that every so often with every periodic financial crisis, millions of Americans just lose their savings, lose their retirement plans, lose their 401ks, or at least have them massively devalued and ripped off, and where everybody else on Wall Street seems to do okay. It's a particularly dangerous illusion that we have in the American stock market and how we do this today. And they're able to put out a headline like this because in that larger American mythology, well, we managed to keep the stock market strong despite the pandemic, and it's like, if you don't understand how government works, you might fall for this propaganda. You might fall for this narrative. But if you understand how government works, you can see through this completely and say this is not only something that's a lie. I mean, the story itself, I'm not going to. I could go through and pick apart so many problems with this story and deconstruct all the propaganda, and I don't want to. It seems like a disgusting waste of time, to look at the knife in your back instead of focusing on getting it out. But when I see a story like this, I have to point out, yes, this is the kind of narrative that makes the economic ripoff possible. Stories matter, interpretations matter, facts matter, and when your narrative is based on fake news, alternative facts, or this narrative that leaves out major elements of government's intervention in the economy, you have to look at this and see it not as a piece of journalism or a piece of reporting, but propaganda and manipulation. And if Americans were taught, not what to think, but how to think, taught reason and logic and deductive reasoning and analysis and to be skeptics, then they wouldn't get away with this. But unfortunately, this propaganda does have an effect in America. Now, the next story looks at the actual measure of this for the American people. Studyfinds.org. Half of Americans call 2020 a personal financial disaster, plan to change priorities in 2021. Now, I've been looking a lot at that half of Americans, the people who are suffering right now. This has been a major motivation for this production, for not just, what I can't help as an expression of empathy, when I see people suffering for things that are beyond their control. But then I have to stop and go, well, what about the other half? Who are the ones for whom this wasn't a personal financial disaster? Government employees, government contractors, people in favored businesses in the pharmaceutical industry, in big box retail and corporate America and the financial sector, not people working as bartenders or servers or small business owners or even a lot of gig economy workers, that's one of the things that hurts the most about this and all of the effect of this, aside from the consolidation, is that it is a bullying, cajoling, bribing, some ways forcing Americans back onto the big plantation. Many of us, many of whom have been, are in different ways, gig economy workers who had gigs in either, like in music or events or something that just disappeared. And if you were working for a registered company and paying your taxes and filing all your paperwork, then you're on the gravy train. You get to be one of the favored Americans for whom this might be a personal financial disaster. But man, it breaks my heart to see that Americans could be could be working for themselves, could be entrepreneurs, could be thriving, and instead of spending so much time begging for handouts, looking for government benefits, trying to make ends meet right now. And so, to the story, new survey shows that rebuilding savings tops the list of New Year's resolutions for 3 in 5 Americans. Yeah, 60%. A stunning 62% of respondents expect to take on a second job in 21 to help stay afloat. Now, the second job thing, I mean, I'm tempted to be like, well, stop using that as leverage. I hate hearing, well, my mama worked 3 jobs. Well, if they were all 2 hours a week, she was working 6 hours a week. Who cares how many jobs she had, right? But that's, that's not what we're talking about here. This is people who have to scrap and manage multiple jobs. And, obviously I'd be more impressed by someone saying, well, I worked, 80 hours a week for a year, as opposed to I worked 2 jobs or 3 jobs and it totaled a lot less time than that. But people are suffering that way too. They're having to put more time in to get the same result, if they're even allowed to. And this does relate to Bitcoin and crypto, and I really do hope that there are going to be a lot more mechanisms by which people are able to take care of each other and feed themselves and work and provide value in ways that are off the record. And that there's, early on in this crisis, one of the, not early on, but once we saw some of the economic consequences setting in, one of the narratives that we used to talk about a lot on Adam versus the Man, I think we're seeing now, more so now that there's kind of this bottoming out period that we've come to, that there's going to be a bifurcation of the economy, or I should really say further bifurcation, that is splitting into 2 in terms of white market and black market. And white market really should be the red market, cleared white by the violence of the state. And the black market it does have dark things about it, because it doesn't have that. It is operating underground in a way that is due to the threats of the state, the threats of violence. But in many ways, the black market is much more peaceful. And I want to encourage everybody who's aware of this, first, to know, hey, you're not alone. If you're suffering financially, you're not alone. Don't be ashamed. Don't be guilty. That negative emotional indulgence is not going to help your situation. But I hope you can take some reassurance from stepping back and going, yeah, I'm not alone. And it's not my fault. There are a lot of Americans experiencing this right now. And I think if we adopt that more positive mindset, we get to solutions a lot faster. We end the suffering a lot faster. And right now, for a lot of people, that means finding alternative means to provide income, to take care of yourself and your family. So whether it's Bitcoin, crypto, whatever else it is, I have things that I have planned that in order to maintain that level of privacy, I'm not going to be talking about for now. But everything, we got to be patient, we got to be persistent, and I hope, especially for listeners to this show, that we can be leaders in our communities as entrepreneurs, and helping people connect and showing people that, you don't need a government licensed business to do business. Certainly not in America, I would hope. But yeah, to the story, 3 in 10 currently don't have the means to cover a $400 financial setback. And that has been a metric recently. I like this in a way, as like, it's an average vehicle repair, right? Or a small one these days, maybe. But how many Americans could afford to cover a $400 a bill right now in an emergency? If your car broke down and you need $400 to make your car work, to keep going to your job, to keep paying for groceries for your family, 3 in 10 Americans couldn't do it. And how many could borrow money? Who knows? But that's not a good position to be in. And that is a measure, I think, of Americans, financial health overall. And certainly, at least since, the 2008 financial crisis, 2009 TARP bailouts, all of that, we haven't seen anything like this. This is a unique financial low point experience for America. The story ends, 45% of respondents expect to take out a loan for one reason or another in 2021. Nearly half of respondents rank the ability to get cash fast as the most important criteria when considering taking out a personal or short-term loan. And, I'm grateful that we live in a world, in a country where we can experience, we can tolerate, we can hold our breath, we can tread water, we can, whatever desperation analogy you want to use, we can make it through something like this, and people aren't going to starve. People are going to suffer. People are going to be led to suicide, as we've covered extensively on the show. People are going to not be able to afford nutritious food, the luxury of vitamins, of medical care even, and there are going to be major consequences for this. So whatever it is that you got to do to make it through this, just remember, in facing 2021, that positive thinking, looking ahead to where you want to be financially, is maybe this is an opportunity where I'm not one for New Year's resolutions, affirmations based on arbitrary chronological intervals. But certainly, as we come to this point historically, it may be a good time for a New Year's resolution to take all of this into effect, or into account in your own financial economic plans moving forward into 2021. I look forward to bringing you the relevant news and helping and motivating you as much as possible in that process with guests and interviews who are going to help, like we've had in this past year for surviving this. Now, how to thrive, how to develop mechanisms that aren't going to be dependent on government being nice in order for you to be able to feed your family. A big part of this is lifestyle, living off grid, being self-sustaining, self-sufficient in so many ways. But right now, the most important thing is to look ahead with this awareness, and I hope take significant comfort in knowing that you are not alone. And we have one more story in our sort of econ block, but I think we're going to save this one for Friday, because there's too much good news wrapped into this. But the coming tech-driven productivity leap is the headline from Axios. We'll table that one for Friday. In order to check in with our comments right now, Mercedes. Let's get Mercedes back up on screen here. How you doing, dear?
Oh, hi. Why am I the big one? I don't want to be the big one. There we go. I fixed it.
Before we get to comments specifically, I got a slouch. I got to get a new chair for my remote studio here to make this work more comfortably, so I'm not straining my back to stay in frame tomorrow. But no, Mercedes, I wanted to discuss with you briefly, at least, something my brother Alden, who's getting on board with the team here one way or another, mentioned earlier, something about the stimulus check.
Oh yeah.
Considering Trump signed this, or just to go over this, where we're at for people practically, because I think you might have a little more updated info than me on this, but that it will be, just to confirm what I understand that with this $900 billion stimulus, we are expecting direct deposit or mail checks as the last stimulus was delivered. And if you were on that gravy train, you're still on board for this one. You probably don't have to do anything
Yes.
different, right?
Yes and
When do we
no.
expect this to arrive? All right, well, answer that first, please.
So yes and no. So I've been reading several different things. So yeah, this is just in, it looks like, 11, so about 2 hours ago. So Trump set that hard line, they passed the bill, but now they're going to add to it, as you see on screen. But also there was something else I read, I need to find, about how this time, if it was a $600 payment, just because you qualified the first time doesn't mean you qualified the second time because of where the tax bracket was. But everything's up in the air right now. Everything is speculation on Capitol Hill regarding the COVID bill because it was 5,000 pages that nobody read, and Trump said $600 isn't enough. So it's kind of like a wait and see. You have to see it to believe it. We know what's going on, but we don't know what's going on. So when it does roll out, if it's 600 or 2,000, it'll still, oh my gosh, I'm a mess talking about this bill. I'm all using my hands backstage. If it will roll out the same way it did before. I looked up the dates that it was going to be released. Sorry.
All right, so Mercedes, let me make sure I understand this part. Hold on, Mercedes, let me just make sure I understand this part right, process-wise. So that the $900 billion stimulus included $600 checks that went to Senate, that got approved, that got signed by the president, and that's in the works. But as it's in process, it might be affected by this new legislation that could make it a $2,000 check.
Yes, and they were saying it could delay the time that the checks are delivered. It could not delay the time the checks are delivered. But if everything goes on course without interruption, the first week of January, the week of the 4th of January, is when the first direct deposits will go in. And then paper checks will go out like the week of the 11th, I believe is what I saw, of January. And then they are talking about a one after that as well. So instead of just one, it might be another one. So, it's fine. I only have a daughter, just one daughter.
It's not fine. It's not fine. It's not fucking fine, Mercedes.
Happy Mental Health Monday.
Catch-up Mondays from now on.
Mental health catch-up Mondays. How much can we cram in our brains today without losing it? But yeah, so the week of the 4th, people should be seeing money. The signing of the bill was so that people that were getting unemployment will get unemployment continued because they're going to miss a week of unemployment because they were still on unemployment, because government has interrupted the flow of economics, because instead of education, they've used fear, because who controls the knowledge controls the people, and eat the cake. Cake is good. It's full of sugar. Perfect timing. But that's what's going on with the bill.
Hold on. So for this next blanket payment, whether it's $1, $2, $600, $2,000, or who knows,
money's coming. I don't know how much.
Right. Thank you, Daddy Government. But let's cover the eligibility thing and make sure I got that right. So how is it not as simple as if you qualify for the last COVID relief check, you got it in the mail, or you got it? I think I got direct deposit. I got. What did I get? I can't remember now. I got whatever the basic. Did I get $600? Is that what I got? And it was by direct deposit with my account.
I got direct deposit
because I filled out a form online for that.
Well, we file our taxes online anyway, and
so you were already in the system with that, and it was attached to your account.
Yeah, because we file the day we can file. We file.
And so for you and your husband, you got two $600 checks twice, right?
Basically? Well, no, they lumped it all together in one payment for our direct deposit. We didn't get two different ones, but my situation.
Right, but there were two different. There have been two different national checks so far in this crisis, haven't there?
One.
Maybe it was the way. Maybe I'm getting. I thought I got two.
Americans got one $1,200 payment. I don't know.
Okay, so
broke it up into two for people.
Hold on, I want to address this comment. Thank you for getting this up here from Anthony Ralston. And there are two things I want to address about this. And I'm going to take this little, crazy Uncle Adam sidebar here first to establish the premise of this point. Thank you, CJ. Yeah. If you can take money from government in a way that does not directly aid, encourage, or contribute to them doing evil or taking more money from people, then you have as close to as you can get a moral obligation to take that money from government. Because if you do not, they are using that money to hurt other people, maybe even you. And if you let them keep that money, this is money that they have to put out on the table in order to maintain the credibility of their racket, in order to do their evil. And if you let it sit there, what you're doing is enabling and empowering them. You're making it easier for government to do evil. So take what you can. Now, if you have some moral objection to accepting money that has been stolen from other people, I respect that, believe it or not. Although I would point out that whatever it is that you are getting, 90+% odds, more than that has been stolen from you. But even if you have an objection to taking that for yourself, then I hope you would take it and donate it to a legitimate charity, not necessarily a government-approved one. Maybe use it to help people who you think deserve it. There are plenty of, if you want to take that righteous position, then you have no excuse to be lazy and not take that money away from people who use it to do evil and use it directly to do good. So that's my take in general on government welfare, government benefits. Take as much as you can, with the only limit being as long as, so this sort of excludes, like, or don't take corporate kickbacks, but as an individual benefit. If what you're doing, like, is when you take a corporate kickback, you're encouraging, you're giving this feedback into the system, right? Or if you're taking a benefit that you don't deserve, or something that's outsized. But if it's an individual benefit that you are, entitled to because government says so, then you should take it. So let's get that comment back up here from Ralston, because Ralston was saying that they didn't get the check because they didn't file their taxes. Now, I don't file taxes either. I have not filed individual income taxes since, I think we squared that up for my congressional race in 2010 for the presidential race. We were like, no, I'm running on the platform of abolishing the IRS. Like, no. But no, I have not filed personal income taxes or for return or paid income taxes in any form. Any jobs that I've had on the record, I've been able to opt out and take the full amount. I haven't had any regular job type jobs in the last few years, but since 2010 at least, I have not filed any individual income tax or returns. And as Anthony says, only Americans who filed their taxes get a check. And that is absolutely not true. There are a lot of people who qualified, like myself, who, like, on paper, I'm just a disabled veteran and that's my income. And by the logic of COVID relief going to people who were affected by this, people in that category should not have gotten any relief, right? People on fixed incomes shouldn't have gotten more money, right? It should have gone directly to people who lost their jobs. That's at least closer to how a market-based, unemployment insurance system, as opposed to a government-forced benefit system, would work. So there was a website I went to, and it's I don't even want to say what it was because it might be different now, but the reason it's worth paying attention to this, and why I'm taking the time in the show today to stop and talk to Mercedes and make sure that I understand from an individual practical perspective, how to play this thing, that we will be bringing you that website when it's released, or when this new check plan is announced. We'll make sure that before it's too late, that you can sign up here. And there are other ways. Now, I'm not going to guarantee that because you're an American citizen and breathing that you're going to qualify for this check, but we'll be paying attention and make sure that if you are qualified, that Adam versus the Man will let you know what you need to know. Right, Mercedes?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I feel like my teeth need to have a sparkle, like visually imposed when you run that thing. But no, Mercedes, back up on screen here. All right.
Yes. How sorry my kitties are.
On screen. Awesome.
I know. That's
All
why I
right.
put it
So
here.
does that kind of put the individual COVID relief check issue to bed for now? Do we beat that to death? Okay, good.
I mean, yes. Yes.
Okay, so any other comments? I think we're just gonna
Yeah,
do one more block and come one more big block here and come back. I got some like political grab bag. So we got to talk about the Nashville bombing, of course, the RV. Very, very interesting story. We've got a couple international stories and American politics grab bag to wrap up the show.
So good news though, since you just mentioned Nashville though. Right now it's 10:54's birthday today. He asks for a gift I'm not going to read out loud. Thanks in advance.
It's my B-Day today. Please topple the state as a gift. Thanks in advance. 10:54. We are on it. We are by, and by topple, of course, we mean through nonviolent means entirely, intellectually toppling the idea of statism and changing the organization of society by persuasion, not coercion. Because if we did that, we would be statists.
And violating the NAP, so let's not do that. And 10:54, happy birthday. It is also my dad's birthday today, my adopted father. I don't know how old he is. He's born in 68, but his name's Larry. And do you know
smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day.
So happy birthday to my dad, Larry, who also shares the name with Larry Sharp, whose show I will be on this afternoon. See how I tumbled that in there. So yes, you can catch me at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time on Larry Sharp, talking to him about stuffs and things. I'm going to be focusing on local issues, though, primarily because that's what libertarians need to do. As much as I love national and I love tackling the feds, if we're going to change things as libertarians, we need to focus on where we live. I don't know what's happening. Hold on, I lost something. I had a pop-up come up. I had music playing and it distracted me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is it playing on the screen? Okay, so sorry, I just had an ad play. So yeah, Larry Sharp, if you want to change things as a libertarian, you got to do it on the local level. That means in the city you live in, county you live in, state you live in.
Well, you know, I'm all about, you know, be the change you wish to see, work from the inside out.
Yes.
But two things I got to point out as potential counterpoints, and I'm all for both. I think both. I'm with like both strategies, top down, bottom up. You know, should be pursued as long as there's potential of success. Not neither one inherently exclusive of the other. So like we might. It might be that people are like, we come to this weird. This is sort of a weird esoteric intellectual sidebar that we might come in the national conversation to a point of realization where it's easier to change course from the nation state down through running a presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party. In that sense, I think supporting Joe Jorgensen was a great thing to do for 2020, and at the same time, it could come completely from the bottom up, like Gardenia sovereignty, and saying, we're independent on our own property. But it starts even freedom. Freedom is between the ears. But when your brain is a part of your computer, Mercedes, you might just have to get an ad blocker. Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yes, you got to break this cycle. Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, was it a pop-up ad for an ad blocker, perhaps?
No. Okay, so I had pulled up all of my links when we were talking about the COVIDs and relief bill, and I didn't take them down, and then it talked to me, and it threw everything into chaos. It's fine.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me. I don't know why, but one other thing.
Chaos.
No, I just chaos and the virus which shall not be named. No, I forgot something in the announcements earlier in the show that our test Wednesday. I started this story. I got to finish the thought to the point here. Well, there are plenty of points about silliness with testing right now, but Wednesday, when the show starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time, is when we have our appointment for the test at Walgreens. And so Jim is going to be covering as host Wednesday morning. And here's the deal. Here's what it comes down to. And this is the chaos you reminded me of, right? This is socialized medicine. This is the uncertainty of government mandates and the bullshit we got to deal with. When my wife and I, when we got tested in Seattle, we made an appointment and we showed up. Well, baby, we were like 5 minutes early for our appointment, and didn't matter. We were at the end of a 2-hour line, standing out in the cold, and it was like, all right, I guess that's it. So we might have to show up at Walgreens at 9 a.m. and be like, oh shit, we're in a lot. But this is a drive-through testing. It's California. People are pretty impatient here, so I'm hoping. If things go well, I will be live streaming our little COVID test experience at 9 a.m. on Wednesday from my pickup truck, and Jim will be anchoring the show from his Phoenix studio. So I'll be, if we're lucky, it's going to be really boring, and we're going to drive in and show IDs, and they're going to say, yes, and you're on the list. You're 5 minutes early. That's great. You go ahead and get in that line, and you'll be done before your time even.
You haven't done a drive-through test yet?
No, I've done
it twice.
I did the home prick test, and I did the walk-through nose swab.
So I've done the drive-through test twice.
Right. So this is a drive. So have they been organized?
So what you do is you'll go to the testing site and you'll see the signs, and usually it's in a parking lot. So you'll snake around in the parking lot and you just get in line. Right. And then as you get to the testing site, you'll see everybody in their gear, and it's very hazmat-y. And they will. Do you have a barcode on your phone? Is that how they gave it to you?
We have a confirmation email from Walgreens.
Yeah. So,
I think it's got a barcode or
so you show your phone, and they beep beep, and they go, okay, here you are. And if everybody's early, like if you got like the first time slot and everybody's early, then they really do pump you out. Because I was early the first time I had it done, I didn't know what was going on, and they were behind 5 minutes. The second time, I knew what was going on, and they were ahead 5 minutes. And so you go up, you scan it. They tell you, put your car in gear, put your seatbelt on, take your foot off the gas, put your head back against the headrest so that they can get into it. And then they go, bleh, and then you gag and you get the tear. And then they go around and do your wife. And they might do you at the same time, they might just tag team you, yeah. And yeah, lots of gagging and tears. It's great. And then after they're done, they make you sit just for a second so you can get your bearings again. Because, some people get discombobulated when they're shoving things up their nose.
And Mercedes, we're talking about something serious. Why is it always got to be about sex?
I'm sorry. I can't.
All the innuendos. Why? We're talking about getting a COVID test.
Because sex work is work on the libertarian, and it's a nice icebreaker. Comedy is gold, and it's what makes hard times easier. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So yeah, that's how the COVID testing goes. And then you drive off, and then you get your results, and usually by email.
So do you think we should go early then?
Yes, because if you're early in line before your appointment, chances are they'll just shuttle you through.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're lucky, I'll just be doing a special broadcast before if we get there 15 minutes early and it's over in a few minutes like it should be, then we might just be just a few minutes late getting back to the studio to start the show, and you guys get to start without me with Jim.
Maybe. We just had this comment pop up that I want to address. How does one get live with Adam Kokesh? Well, Ken, you go to our Patreon site, and you become a member of the Producers Club, and then you can have the link every day, and then you can be backstage, and then you'll be on screen. That's how you be live on Adam versus the Van. Sorry, CJ. I didn't mean to throw that promotion in there without you knowing it. Just the comment, the moment presented itself. So
right, and if you want to be a guest or pitch somebody else to be a guest on Adam versus the Man, simply send an email to Marcus, Marcus, @thefreedomline.com.
He's really good.
amazing guest booker, very responsible.
He's so cool, and he has his own podcast too. So.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me. Before we jump into our grab bag, Mercedes, we do have three things I gotta do as like random updates here. Teasing ahead guests, we have Daryl Cotton from 151farmers.org coming on tomorrow. And then we have, wait, is that it? That's all we have? Oh, we only have one guest tomorrow.
That's
okay,
New
so
Year's.
tomorrow. And then my case in New Orleans. This is the other one, the second one.
Oh.
Kokesh versus Curly. And this is the Shall ID case from when we were there doing water stenciling for the Freedom Book Bomb. Excuse me, Big Easy Book Bomb. And we were water stenciling and got arrested detained.
Okay.
You can also call in.
in.
Yes, of course. Thank you, CJ. Yes, call in on Fridays. Fridays is the cutting edge of good news and your calls, especially open lines. But this case, I was recording, live streaming on Twitter. Fortunately, kind of saved us, made a case out of this. But we were stopped on the side of the road, and the officer essentially was correct to show up on scene with his lights on to say, hey, there's a vehicle on the side of the road on the freeway, and that's unusual. Let's stop and help. Oh, and then to determine, what they're doing itself is not illegal, as he made clear that the water stenciling was not a problem. But hey, we got to give the driver a ticket for stopping illegally for an illegitimate purpose on the shoulder. So, and he got the ticket, and they backed that up. But then they tried to arrest me for just being there and having participated in the water stenciling, which they had already determined was lawful, and demanded that I show ID. They said, you're not under arrest. We demand that you show ID. And I said, no, I don't do that. I'm American. We got it all on video, and I ended up getting dropped on my head in custody. And this is such a fun.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, right. That explains everything, doesn't it? But I've told this story a few times. Of resisting in jail and making noise and getting released after 3 days, making them strip me naked instead of voluntarily putting on the jumpsuit, and then making them do it in reverse and put my civilian clothes back on me one sock at a time. Yeah, I did that, and I made them wheel me out of the jail. I refused to cooperate with anything, and I made them wheel me out of jail in a wheelchair and dump me on the sidewalk. But anyway, they did drop me on my head at one point early on in this process, and so we have two cases with them. One is the physical accident, being responsible for dropping me on my head, and it wasn't like I'm trying to claim some major injury, but no, you fuckers dropped me on my head. I got a goose egg, and I was woozy for a day.
That's not funny. I'm sorry.
Like, no, you don't just get to rough people up like that and get away with it. Tough shit. And it's on video. We have the body cam of them dropping me on my head. And it wasn't like they picked me up and slammed me on my head. Like, no. But I asked for medication. I asked for medical attention, and get it. It's all on the record. But the other one, the bigger one that's really exciting, is the civil rights case, because in the South, they have a version of stop and frisk. That's shall ID. And that a cop can detain you and demand ID, and then use that as leverage for searches and detention and charges and bullshit whenever they want.
Yep.
And Louisiana is one of 6 states that still has that on the books. And so the attorney who found me when this happened, great dude, Kearney Laughlin, can't recommend him enough. He's been great in this process. As slow as it's been, the exciting news is that it is now scheduled for oral argument for looks like March 1st. So yeah, so this is very exciting. The thing is, oral arguments for a case like this might be all remote. it could be all, but like I've been to some court sessions in the COVID era where everybody I was there in person. A few people were there in person, but a lot of people were remoting in. But this is like, I have a badass civil rights attorney taking this case, and I just felt like it's a fun story to retell and remind people of, and let you know that This is what's happening. And March 1st, we have that on my calendar now. I don't assume there's going to be any news before then, unless they offer to settle. So, and my attorney was saying that in a case like this, and with where they're at, if we said, give us a little bit of money and we'll go away, like, they would take it, because
They really would, though.
sufficiently made ourselves a pain in the ass. So I have a sort of personal financial interest, but the much bigger interest here, obviously, is that this could be a significant civil rights case. And it could be for New Orleans, it could be nationally, it could be regionally, as in district, circuit, federal court system. But this is a significant place where we can say, and it's funny, like White Boy from Arizona comes and does this in New Orleans, where it's rural white cops fucking with black people in the city of New Orleans for the most part. And you go, but maybe this, trust me, I'm aware of all of the racial intersections with this one. But that it could be a significant change in law enforcement policy in those half a dozen states in a really powerful, meaningful way. And it could be finally a little compensation, because I've been roughed up by cops way more than this.
See, and it's legal precedent that backs up, adds to the other legal precedents.
Yes.
So it adds to the weight of.
And if anybody has cases like this, I would encourage, if you can sue cops, like there's a point of where you're affecting in terms of the principle of taking money from government. Like if I was suing this is Louisiana State Troopers. If I was suing, fuck Stadies, right? But no, if it was like my local police department and I was suing them for $10,000 for reasonable personal injury compensation, to say, no, you guys need to be held accountable. This is going to prevent other people from getting hurt in the future and make it slightly more difficult for you to do the evil part of your job, we're going to do it. If I was, like spilled coffee on my lap from a cop and, was trying to sue for $10 million, no, that's at the point where you're encouraging government to take more and making financial issues for the city and city taxpayers. So there is a line there I do recognize. But but generally, if you have a case that you can follow up, that you can pursue, like this, where you're suing government for suing local police or state or feds, anybody for reasonable damages, certainly anything under $100,000 and probably $100,000 to $1 million, maybe not over $1 million, depending on what you're actually experiencing. And of course, your case, you decide. But I'm not going to ever stop you or discourage you from taking money from government like this for personal, injury or civil rights compensation. And if you think you ended up getting too much, and if anything, I would say also go for more than you think you deserve. And if you got more than you think you deserve, then donate some to a righteous cause, because you're still going to be putting it somewhere better than government. So really, if it's coming from government, unless you're like fucking with some generally benign city government, take as much as you can get,
They have insurance. It's not like they don't have insurance. Also, but I like the Robin Hood approach, and then you apply it to police, where you're defending your.
All right. Well, hey, Mercedes, we got less than 20 minutes in the show, so let me hit this grab bag. Then we're gonna come back, check on comments, and do good news. So get your comments in. You can still win Producer Club membership today. Getting back to our pile of news, most of this from the Producers Club. Business Insider has this headline: the Justice Department is suing Walmart, accusing the retailer of turning its pharmacies into a network of opioid suppliers that helped fuel the epidemic. Yeah. So, wrinkle in the story, Walmart preemptively sued the federal government in October. The government's lawsuit alleges that Walmart pharmacies did not properly screen prescriptions, understaffed pharmacies, and pushed employees to fill prescriptions quickly. Now, who's actually to blame in this? Obviously, the pharmaceutical companies bribe government to change policy that creates the incentive for a company like Walmart, for their employees, for their managers, to not get in the way of generously filling prescriptions. And I would say ultimately, as with everything, the responsibility is with the American people that we allow this to happen. And for every American who's had opiates pushed on you by a doctor, and you know, you're a victim. Absolutely, 100%. Because you trust doctors. They take advantage of you. They manipulate you through their perceived authority by being the guy in the white lab coat. And if they say you need to take these prescriptions, there's a certain fraud there. And a lot of that is a financial incentive dishonesty that you connect back to, well, pharmaceutical industry companies pushing drugs with kickbacks to doctors and conferences and sales reps taking them out to dinner off the record and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, there are all these responsible parties. When it comes to you as a patient, you know, you are a victim of that fraud by your doctor saying that you should take this drug when they know that it's probably not going to be good for you and they're doing it for personal enrichment. Yeah. That's how we do medicine in America. And is coming after Walmart going to do anything about this? No. This isn't going to change the underlying systemic problems of pharmaceutical corporate law liability and the FDA approval process and just the entire premise of prescription medications entirely. Now, you know, even as someone who wants government to have nothing to do with this as a libertarian, I want there to be controls. I want there to be safety mechanisms in place. Obviously, what we're seeing here is the current government corporate, licensed doctor, medical, whole framework is failing. And it's led to hundreds of thousands of deaths in what is now just the American opioid crisis. And it is, by some accounts, north of 300,000 Americans. Some people would say more in some more inclusive analyses. This lawsuit, though, this is the government trying to get billions of dollars in civil penalties from Walmart, accusing them of violating the CSA, the Controlled Substances Act. And the penalties could be over $67,000 for each unlawful prescription that was filled, over $15,000 for each suspicious prescription not reported. Now, obviously, that money is not going to go back to the real victims in the drug war. And that is, as I pointed out in this case, the people who were prescribed and had opioids pushed on them by doctors when that wasn't done for their health. It was done for the doctor's financial health. And the thing is, the doctors are kind of victims in this too, because they don't get the bigger piece of the pie compared to the pharmaceutical company owners, executives, et cetera, the sales reps who are making commission on so much of this. $67,000. It'd be nice if you could say, well, I was a victim. I'm going to get, No, what is this? This is the government, the ones who hold the guns, the ones who are ultimately in charge, right? Shaking down a company for responding to incentives that they created in the first place. Yeah. Don't expect fundamental change to come out of this lawsuit. New York Post, alleged white supremacist plot to attack U.S. power stations revealed this weekend. Not quite credible. Who knows what the heck is really going on here? Don't be afraid of what they want you to be afraid of. Diversionary stories, an alleged plot by white supremacists to attack power stations in the southeastern U.S. next summer was brought to light on Tuesday. The scheme was detailed. Yeah, so this is going back to before the break. Scheme was detailed in an FBI affidavit mistakenly unsealed last week. Yes, surprised we didn't catch that part of the story when it happened. The documents were originally filed under seal along with a search warrant in Wisconsin federal court in March. They alleged that an Ohio teenager with a fondness for Nazi flags discussed the plan, which he dubbed Lights Out, with a small group of people over text in the fall of 2019. The then 17-year-old said he wanted to create a power outage by shooting the rifle rounds into power stations that were planned to carry out next summer. In a text to an FBI informant, another group member allegedly wrote that leaving the power off would wake people up to the harsh reality of life by wreaking havoc across the nation. Your tax dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen. Entrapping an Ohio teenager in an industrial sabotage plot by text message that had almost zero chance of succeeding. The New York Times has this next headline: a warning, then a blast. Nashville explosion was deliberate, police say. This explosion, we've been following the story since it happened, and it is a very unique phenomena as far as bombings go for a number of reasons. One, the deliberate avoidance of casualties of hurting humans with the way that this was done, with the warning system, the apparent targeting of an AT&T site that was going to impact service. The suspect that we have in mind now, there are a lot of unusual things with him who they're looking at on this. Details are still scant, and I feel it's almost irresponsible to talk about someone who the government is fingering when we know that we can't trust them in this, and there's already been significant, let's just say, disappointments from government in the handling of this thus far. Another sort of unique wrinkle, skipping ahead in the stack one to the story from The Guardian, Tennessee paper religious ad claims Islam will detonate nuclear bomb in Nashville. Editor of the Tennessean calls full page ad horrific. Newspaper investigating breakdown in the normal process. So this is just sort of a weird wrinkle that came about from an ad much before this that was predicting a terrorist attack in Nashville next month. So, and this is the group Future for America claims Donald Trump is the final president of the USA. There's a photo of Trump and Saint Fran and Pope Francis. So I mean, already kind of an iffy story to begin with. Whether there's a connection remains to be seen. But what we have in this, for those of you who missed the basics of the story, is that first came the warning, then came the blast, shattering the Christmas morning silence in the heart of the city's tourist district. This from the New York Times, with some of the video on screen here showing the RV actually where it was parked in downtown Nashville. Before dawn on Friday, Nashville police officers rushed to calls of gunfire on 2nd Avenue, a strip of honky-tonks, restaurants, and boot shops. Instead of gunfire, they found an RV blaring a strange and unsettling message. There was a bomb. It would detonate in 15 minutes. Now, there are a number of problems with this story already. First of all, the gunshots have not been explained. Oh, that's such a problem, so much as a known unknown, but a pretty significant one at this point. And with this and the alleged suspect and the nature of this, the internet is on fire with conspiracy theories about this. It is absolutely right for this. Don't worry, I'm not going all Alex Jones Newtown on you with this one, but I do think that there are significant problems with the government narrative so far. Yeah, that's not really saying much, is it? But no, really fundamental ones. First, the explanation for the gunfire generally lacking. The information that is going to come out, and we have to, it sucks that it's under a government that we know we can't trust, but when the reports come out from the analysis of the blast, when the chemical analyses are done, did the bomber put some kind of firecrackers in there to get people's attention because he thought that the announcement wasn't enough? Maybe. And that's one of the parts of this story that is, as the New York Times describes, strange and unsettling. There was a bomb that would detonate in 15 minutes is what came out from some kind of speakers in the RV. And there were 3 people hospitalized from this. So the bomber was largely successful for targeting what they did, according to this, and not causing significant, at least no loss of life. But it was a big enough bomb that there were windows, in shops and offices for several blocks. And the target, apparently, was the AT&T transmission building, because the vehicle arrived. This was 2nd Avenue North at 1:22 a.m. You'd think that there would be more coming out about this. Again, if government wanted to catch the person responsible right away, I think, I'm not saying they don't want to catch the person as fast as they can, but they're not willing perhaps to accept help that would come from releasing this information in order to do it. They sort of, they're willing to.
Based
slow
on the
things
evidence
down.
gathered to this point, we've come to the conclusion that an individual named Anthony Warner is the bomber, that he was present when the bomb went off, and that he perished in the bombing.
There is no indication presently that anyone else was involved in this crime. Nashville is considered safe. There are no known threats against this city.
So that would be nice if it was as simple as that. I hope it is, but until more explanations come out, I'm a little suspect of this explanation that a suicide bomber would target an industrial location. There are a lot of things that don't add up, and I'm not saying, hey, when we figure this out, we'll be able to expose the Illuminati and take down the whole power structure. I don't want to make more of this than it is. If it's just propaganda, if it's some legitimate crazy person, of course the government's not going to handle it the way that I want them to. Right? Surprise, surprise. So it was the AT&T transmission building, and the bomb did successfully take out enough of the AT&T equipment that there were regional outages. Now, according to this article from the New York Times, it says it is still unclear if a person was inside the RV. Obviously, the clip that CJ just brought into the story is a little update on the government story from that, but that they would come out and say this. You show up on scene, you're gonna know right away, or at least with the first professional analysis. But here's the other thing that's disturbing in the sort of lack of professionalism and the disappointment in the response is that this device was there that was giving off a warning that said it's going to detonate in 15 minutes. And all the police did was evacuate. And then, of course, they're hailed as heroes for walking around. And yeah, that's the right thing. Did they linger and stay in the area longer than necessary to evacuate at their own personal risk? Well, okay, that's great. Celebrate that. Absolutely. Given how much money we give to local police departments through the U.S. military department of, or the militarization of local police departments, that they didn't respond with a dude in a bomb suit, that there wasn't a SWAT team on site or some other response or design. I mean, someone pointed out, well, yeah, a real hero cop would have hooked the truck up to that thing and driven it into a lake before it went off. I don't know if that's exactly proper bomb clearing technique. Wasn't my specialty, but I just, there is something that strikes me as a little off on that. I posted that on Twitter, and a few of the responses were that, hey, Adam, that's unreasonable. Why are you expecting government efficiency? All right. Or that a couple of people pointed out that there were bomb disposal units en route to the location when it went off. Well, when seconds count, the police are just minutes away, and there's going to be more to the story we're going to be following up on. All right, two quick international stories before we get to your comments and wrap up with the good news here. From the Associated Press, breakthrough, UK and EU reach post-Brexit trade agreement. Yes, despite the pandemic from the virus, which shall not be named, despite the naysayers, the peaceful political separation of Great Britain from the European Union has taken its next great leap forward. Just a week before the deadline, Britain and the European Union struck a free trade deal that should avert economic chaos on New Year's and bring a measure of certainty for businesses after years of Brexit turmoil. Certainly, so it still has to be ratified by both sides. We'll be following up on this, but I just had to share this story from the Producers Club in part because it does reveal, everyone's saying, oh, you can't reorganize government like this. You can't do this. It's not, shut up. We can do if Britain can manage this after all the animosity, even after all of the bullshit in the whole Brexit process, yeah, good news. Quickly from The Guardian, we might have to come back to this on Friday. Lib Dems hook up with 5G cranks and give a boost to wild conspiracy. Irrational notions become dangerous when supported by those who know better. Yeah, we're going to have to come back to this show on Friday with the cutting edge of technology. Now, one last link, CJ, I included in here, and I'm sorry I didn't get to the final image that I wanted to show. My internet was being slow this morning, but this came up actually. I'll say in a family chat. We have a family political chat. We use WhatsApp for that because my dad started it, and I love it. It's a lot of fun. But one of the things I had to point out yesterday was the logical fallacies of someone in that chat taking the pro-vaccine or just the position of take the vaccine as soon as government says it's ready. And if you don't know the logical I busted out the logical fallacy poster graphic. If you don't know it, you can find this just by doing a Google search for logical fallacy poster. And if you don't know it, it's actually it's a cool I forget who did it. It's in there. It's in the. What does it say at the bottom? Can you zoom in there? Thou shalt not. The very, very bottom. I want to give credit since I'm mentioning this on the air. But what is it? yourlogicalfallacyis.com. Thank you so much, CJ. Perfect producer work right there. Love this graphic. And you can go through, and I know most people don't listen to reason in the first place, but for people who do hold that truth and logic as values and can be called to that, oftentimes pointing out, to people who don't, pointing out logical fallacies seems to enrage them and upset them further and cause less logic and reason in their arguments. But when you are dealing with people who are receptive, who do believe in intellectual integrity, or maybe in your audience, if not in your the person you're directly in intellectual disagreement with, but pointing out logical fallacies really helps get us to the truth in some very important ways. All right, so let's check back in with Mercedes and comments to wrap the show up today. What do you got, Mercedes? Any other top comments worthy of a producer club membership?
Why am I big all the time when I come on screen? Well, it depends on if Miss Prepper is already in our club, because she asked, is that a freedom quilt? I love it.
It is.
As your background. And I agree with her on that one. So
yeah, the only thing the studio, this hotel closet remote studio is perfect except for the chair being normal height. And I have to slouch to be in frame, but we'll have that set for tomorrow.
Pillows. Otherwise, I guess I'm speaking with German accents now. I'm really stuffed up. She also said, notice that in the Nashville bombing, the exact alarm they used is in the new movie Greenland, which I have not seen, but CJ has been pushing down our throats all weekend that we were not on. But I do not know. I saw the video. I've not seen the movie. I'm not feeding into conspiracies with this one because it's way too easy to feed into the conspiracies on this one.
Well, thank you for reminding me, Mercedes. I needed to add Greenland to my movie download list. But the conspiracy could be as simple as not just sort of like inspired by it. Like the bomber got an early copy of the movie and said, "Ooh, it's going to be cool if we do it this way."
Or he just randomly selected it. I don't know. Because
the other thing is, like at this point too, the guy could be a government patsy. I mean, I don't want to be too conspiracy minded, but it's not an unreasonable theory that we can rule out.
If he supports Trump, chances are he was a conspiracy theorist. I mean, he's literally a suicide bomber. Call it what it is. This is not good. It doesn't matter what way you look at it.
No. Well, let me suggest another sort of low-level conspiracy theory that still holds this accused bomber completely blameless? What if he was a witness to some kind of police corruption and the police set this up and they killed him by accident, or they figured out a way to kill him and dispose of the body and make him look crazy and do all this at the same time? Police have done weirder shit.
I'm just going to say, if they find a monkey within the wreckage and, I mean, there's an RV involved, chances are the Super Troopers are going to be available soon. So, winding that up into there, that's really Miss Prepper has been our last commenter. 1054 did say he enjoyed the cuddle pile in the back, which I just had to break up because my kitties are into things that are not going to be said out loud on the internet. Thank you. Coming to my TED Talk. So promos it is, and then we can.
All right. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. AdamVersusTheMan.com. CJ's put together an amazing website. You can get our merchandise there. And if you join the Producers Club through Patreon, which you can also find through there for $10 a month, patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. Really, your support makes the show possible. But also your participation in the Producers Club as our editorial team. It's amazing. Love it. And you get 15% off our store and free shipping if you do that. Last week, we're going to be pushing this last chance for BakeThemDebate.com. So let's make it happen. We got at least one more good one in the works here.
Yes.
And then CigarFederation.com. Check it out. Promo code Adam10, ADAM10, all caps. Gets you 10% off your order. And please follow us at the Garden of Freedom. We won't be there for a while, but if you haven't seen the scorpion cat, mama cat catching and eating the scorpion alive, that's there. Check it out. Please follow us on Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. Now, to wrap today's show up, the good news in history for December 28th. It was 125 years ago today, what is believed to be the first paid audience for a motion picture. Saw 10 short films by the Lumiere brothers in Paris, including what turned out to be the birth of cinema. 46 seconds of workers leaving the Lumiere factory. Also on this day in 1065, Westminster Abbey was consecrated. On this day in 1897, Cyrano de Bergerac and Edmond Rostand play premiered in Paris about a real-life French dramatist and his nose. On this day in 1950, the Peak District became the UK's first national park. On this day in 1973, President Richard Nixon signed a strengthened version of the Endangered Species Act, which led to the recovery of the bald eagle and other species. Not sure about the full attribution there, but we'll call that status good news for the day. On this day in 1981, the first American test tube baby, Elizabeth Jordan Carr, was born in Norfolk, Virginia. And on this day in 2007, Nepal's parliament abolished the country's monarchy to replace it with a democratic republic. And yes, while there are, I'm sure, plenty of things you could pick apart about that, the general decentralization of power is a good thing to celebrate, along with the fact that today is the 98th anniversary of the birth of Stan Lee, the Marvel Comics writer and publisher, the creator of such icons as Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. Although you should watch his epic rap battle of history versus what was it? Stan? Oh my gosh, no, I can't. The guy who did Sesame Street. That's the Doors. Stan Lee, check out his epic rap battle. It's a good one. By the way, the latest epic rap battle I've watched a few times now is Luke Skywalker versus Harry Potter in the Lego universe. Yeah, enjoy that. All right, with that, peace and love, y'all. Jim Henson. That's it. Jim Henson. Jim Henson versus Stan Lee, epic rap battle. Thank you, dear. Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.